Canada, the Great White North, known worldwide as America's friendly neighbor, a progressive paradise with free healthcare, low crime, and equal opportunity for all. At least, that's the reputation. But peel back the polite Canadian stereotypes, and you'll find a country collapsing under the weight of its unfulfilled ideals. Walk the streets of any major city, and you're bound to stumble over a burgeoning homeless camp. Need emergency surgery? Hope you've got a few months to spare. And that supposedly low crime rate? Well, random attacks are now a daily occurrence on public transit. The truth is, the Canadian dream is dying. This is the story of a country crumbling, of a people grasping to restore their promised land. But what's unraveling this narrative? Let's delve deep into the real talk about Canada's aches and pains. But before we begin this video, we would love for you to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell icon so you don't miss out on amazing and entertaining content. Now, Canada, as I'm sure you know, is a massive country. I mean, it's the second largest sovereign state in the world by total land area. But even with all that land, its population is actually quite small, only around 40 million people. To put that in perspective, that's just a bit more than the population of California. Back in the 1930s, a Canadian Prime Minister named William Lyon Mackenzie King once remarked that while some countries have too much history, Canada seems to have too much geography. And he was definitely onto something there. Canada's sheer size and abundance of natural resources have really shaped its economy over the years. Let's go back a bit in history here. When French and British colonizers first arrived, Canada's economy was all about fur trapping. Then it shifted to logging and fishing as settlements grew. But in the 20th century, Canada really became known as a major exporter of oil and hydroelectric power. The oil fields of Alberta and the massive hydro dams of Quebec fueled rapid economic expansion. Now, of course, Canada had other industries too: factories, financial companies, ad agencies, and more in its cities. But natural resources remain the heart of the economy. Canada has always existed in the economic shadow of the United States, given the U.S. is its next-door neighbor and leading global economic power. Many of Canada's factories and companies were actually branch plants of big American firms like Ford, GM, Heinz, Kraft, and Campbell's Soup. But today, something has gone terribly wrong with Canada's economy. The country's income and wealth are decreasing, both compared to other countries, in absolute terms. Canadians are getting poorer, and that's a real cause of concern. A recent forecast has painted a vivid picture of Canada's future, one in which its economy is projected to experience the slowest growth among OECD countries. It's a noteworthy shift from a generation ago, when Canada proudly held a prominent position among the world's prosperous nations. However, as we peer into the horizon, it appears that Canada's standing is poised to slip toward the lower end of the spectrum among its wealthy counterparts. The core issue here is stagnating productivity. Economists emphasize that productivity growth is key for increasing national wealth and incomes. Essentially, it measures how much economic output each worker produces. The more output per worker, the greater a country's overall wealth. Unfortunately, Canada's productivity has come to a standstill. Once upon a time, Canadians stood shoulder to shoulder with their American counterparts in terms of productivity. However, fast forward to the present day, and the average American worker is nearly 40% more productive than their Canadian counterpart. This, naturally, has far-reaching consequences. It means that Canadians earn less than their American neighbors, with the average salary in the U.S. ringing in at around $57,000 U.S., while in Canada it falls short of $44,000 U.S. The question that beckons our attention is, why has this decline in productivity transpired? The answer, in simplest terms, is a transformation in the very fabric of Canada's economic landscape. In the not-so-distant past, Canada was known for its resource-driven economy, utilizing its abundant natural wealth to fuel growth. However, a pivotal turning point emerged during the global financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. While Canada wasn't at the epicenter of this crisis, it did respond in tandem with global central banks, dropping interest rates to stimulate its own economy. And this is where the story takes an interesting twist. Instead of reverting to its resource-based foundations, Canada embarked on a new path. The nation, once a resource economy, pivoted toward an economy centered around real estate, a phenomenon some describe as a modern-day Ponzi scheme. Homes became commodities, bought and sold at increasingly inflated prices. But why? As the world grappled with financial instability, Canada found a seemingly stable haven in its real estate sector. As the global stage shifts, so does the Canadian landscape. Central banks, both at home and abroad, have begun raising interest rates, aiming to curb inflation and temper household demand. This move comes at a time when Canada is feeling pressure from external forces, particularly surges in energy and agricultural prices, due in part to supply chain disruptions linked to the ongoing situation in Ukraine. Simultaneously, strong domestic demand and a shortage of labor have caused wages to rise. The Canadian unemployment rate, once considered to be neutral, is now significantly lower. As we tread further into the terrain of economic forecasts, it's important to recognize that the intricate interplay between economic factors is what shapes a nation's future trajectory. With the dawn of cheap mortgages, a cascade of changes began to ripple across the country. This was an era when the allure of owning a home grew stronger, as more and more Canadians could afford to step onto the property ladder. Around 70% of Canadians found themselves homeowners during this time, riding the tide of rising house prices that bestowed upon them a sense of newfound wealth and a curious feeling of invincibility. Interestingly, as the United States grappled with a housing market bust, Canada seemed oddly immune to the crisis. This led to an era of speculative frenzy in the Canadian housing market, particularly in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver, where house prices skyrocketed by double-digit percentages annually. But the anticipated bubble burst never arrived, and this apparent resilience further reinforced the notion of a thriving real estate haven in Canada. However, in 2014, a new phase of Canada's economic story began to unfold. Global oil prices plummeted, witnessing a staggering 50% drop in just a year. Given that oil was Canada's most significant export, and a lucrative one at that, the repercussions were profound. Investment in the oil industry shrunk, businesses turned their backs on oil, and an even stronger emphasis was placed on the housing market. This shift in focus was partly a result of Canada's robust immigration rates. The constant influx of new residents translated to a consistent demand for new homes. Consequently, a significant portion of capital began to flow into the construction of residential real estate. At the same time, Canadian households began diverting their wealth away from other investments and towards the purchase of homes, leading to a transformation in the investment landscape. A significant turning point was the amount of capital being channeled into residential real estate started exceeding that going into business investment. This shift created an economic imbalance that could not be ignored. The repercussions of this tilt are profound. Canada's dearth of business investment has hampered the creation of new enterprises, and the few that do emerge are often acquired by American companies, as their U.S. counterparts still possess the resources to invest. The disparities in investment have also taken a toll on productivity and wages. The average American worker benefits from roughly twice the amount of investment as their Canadian counterpart. This discrepancy leads to differences in resources and technology available to each worker, which ultimately reflects in their productivity. As a result, Canadian workers produce less than their American counterparts, creating a gap in wealth creation. A critical issue intertwining with these economic dynamics is housing affordability. Between 2010 and the present day, the average house price in Canada tripled. Although this surge in prices brought joy to current homeowners, it cast a shadow of difficulty over young individuals aspiring to enter the housing market. Unfortunately, this situation took a turn for the worse during the COVID-19 pandemic. As interest rates dropped to zero, Canadians rushed to secure mortgages, causing housing prices to spike by an astounding 50% between 2020 and 2022. In response to rising inflation, the Bank of Canada, like other global central banks, started raising interest rates. However, the structure of Canada's mortgage system added a unique twist. Unlike in the US, where fixed-rate mortgages for longer durations are common, Canadian mortgages typically last only 5 years. As a result, homeowners faced a precarious situation as interest rates on variable-rate mortgages began to rise. Even those with fixed-rate mortgages faced higher interest rates when renewing their mortgages. Amidst these financial shifts, Canada's banks adopted an innovative approach. To avert a potential housing crash, they extended the amortization period of mortgages, which lowered monthly payments but stretched out the duration of mortgage repayment to unprecedented lengths. Consequently, many Canadians now find themselves with mortgages that could take 70, 80, or even 90 years to pay off. This dynamic has created a distorted housing market. The dream of home ownership has turned into a nightmare of seemingly perpetual debt. Furthermore, the affordability crisis is particularly harsh for first-time buyers, as the high prices, combined with elevated interest rates, make the prospect of owning a home nearly unattainable. The situation has triggered a shift in the demographics of home buyers, with existing homeowners leveraging their current properties to buy investment properties or corporations purchasing homes. In the midst of these complex economic interplays, the home ownership rate in Canada has dipped from 70% a decade ago to 66.5% today. This trend suggests that Canada's economic landscape is undergoing a significant transformation, with the accessibility of home ownership eroding one household at a time. As we peer into the future, the path forward for Canada's economy remains intricate and uncertain as it navigates the challenges of a skewed investment landscape and a housing market seemingly out of balance. Another pivotal factor amplifying the challenges at hand is the growing housing shortage. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's federal government recently made the decision to elevate Canada's immigration levels to an astonishing 500,000 newcomers every year. However, beyond just permanent residents, Canada also welcomes a substantial influx of foreign students and temporary foreign workers, many of whom end up staying. This dynamic has propelled Canada's population growth to a staggering rate of 1 million per year, an enormous figure for a nation of 40 million people. This rapid population expansion might sound positive at first, but it poses a significant predicament. Canada's economy, already grappling with sluggishness and underinvestment, struggles to match the pace of this population surge. As a result, while the economy is technically growing on a per-person basis, it's shrinking. In the latter half of 2022, Canada entered a per capita recession, and the economic challenges it's grappling with are reverberating through the nation. But the consequences don't end there. Canada's cherished healthcare system is also buckling under the weight of these challenges. The influx of 1 million new arrivals annually is further straining a system already stretched thin. The unfortunate reality is that not all of these newcomers can work as doctors in Canada due to the country's reluctance to recognize foreign medical credentials from many immigrant countries. The healthcare workforce took a hit during the pandemic, with many healthcare workers leaving their positions due to stress or disagreements over vaccine mandates. Today, the healthcare system struggles to attract new workers even as the population surges. On a similar note, the booming population is stretching Canada's construction industry to its limits. The demand for new homes far outstrips the supply that construction companies can provide. Canada is able to construct around 200,000 to 240,000 new homes per year, which is woefully inadequate to accommodate 1 million new residents annually. Moreover, experts suggest that there simply aren't enough construction workers to meet the demand. To put it in perspective, a recent report by Canada's mortgage insurer indicated that the country would need to build 5.8 million new homes in the next 7 years, yet it's on track to construct around 2 million. A significant component of Canada's immigration policy is its point system, which favors high-skilled labor. This means that while Canada attracts immigrants who can contribute significantly to the economy, it misses out on a crucial segment of the workforce: construction workers. As the housing shortage intensifies, rents for apartments are skyrocketing, with Toronto witnessing a staggering 30% increase in just a year. The outcome is a distressing game of musical chairs, where those with the lowest incomes are pushed to the margins, resulting in a growth of homelessness. Regrettably, the political landscape seems devoid of concrete solutions. Canada's 4 major political parties and a separatist party in Quebec show little inclination to effectively address the housing crisis. This stands in part because the daunting costs associated with resolving the housing shortage are simply too high for the government to bear. Building the required 5.8 million homes would necessitate hundreds of billions of dollars in borrowed funds, a financial feat the government can't currently manage, particularly given today's interest rates. Tackling housing affordability also poses a political challenge, as it would likely lead to a decrease in housing prices. This is a proposition no politician is eager to support, given the vast number of homeowners who have reaped significant equity gains. Additionally, none of the political parties are keen on lowering the immigration rate, as any such proposal is swiftly met with accusations of xenophobia, despite the fact that a majority of Canadians, including immigrants, believe immigration levels are too high. In essence, Canada's political leadership appears to be as immobilized and bereft of innovative ideas as its business community. The foreseeable future is one marred by preventable health crisis, growing homelessness, and a collective political stance of turning a blind eye to the problem at hand. The sad reality is that the urgency for action will likely only become evident when the crisis worsens. And there you have it. An inside look at the economic and social issues threatening to unravel the fabric of Canadian society. From declining productivity to an overheated housing market, it's clear some tough conversations and policy changes lie ahead. What do you think Canada needs to do to get back on track? Do you see signs of hope amidst the challenges? I want to hear your thoughts, so make sure to leave your comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.